Hello.
Hello, and welcome back again. I'm Candace.
And I'm Val.
And welcome to our Closing the Early Literacy Gap podcast.
This podcast is for anyone who has anything to do with small children or anyone working with those in the early stages of literacy learning or learning how to read.
Yes, parents, teachers, administration.
People who are training or coaching teachers in any way. Anyone.
This podcast is for anyone. Yes, and thank you for joining us on our journey. We are on episode 9. We're so excited. And today we're covering my favorite thing, which is vowels.
Well, vowels are awesome because you can't really function without vowels.
No, you can't. And it's amazing to me how many kids don't know, one, what the vowels are, and two, that they make different sounds.
Right. You know what? I have a confession to make.
What?
I did not realize that a syllable is a word or part of a word with one vowel sound.
Yes.
That the vowel sound is what makes a syllable until like 3 years ago.
Yeah. It's amazing that how much you learn when you're teaching.
Yes.
Where you're like, well, hold on.
But this is years after I started teaching too.
True.
I mean, I had taught how many years I taught kids what the vowels were and all this stuff, and I never really realized the role that the vowels play.
Okay, so for those of you who are in here and might not be, professional educators, or maybe you were never taught what a syllable is or how to syllabicate words.
I was taught what a syllable was. I thought a syllable were how many beats in a word.
Right. But so let's syllabicate a word really quick. Let's do history.
History.
Okay, so that's 3 syllables. Now, you were just saying that a syllable is broken down into vowel sounds. So let's break it down. We know there's 3 syllables. What's the vowel sound in the first one?
History.
Right? What's the second vowel sound? Oh, right? And then what's the last vowel sound? E. History. So 3 vowel sounds for syllabicating. And syllabicating is very important for reading.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is. And also, learning the syllables and syllable types are really important. We'll get into that too a little bit. But
yeah,
I do want to say this before. Another thing I didn't know about vowels is that the thing that makes vowel sounds different from consonant sounds is that they're open and voiced.
Yes. And you do an amazing thing in your class to teach open vowels.
Since I learned this in the last few years, I started doing this. So I would teach my kids to put their hands on their cheeks or under their chin and feel when they say a word. So I'd say, okay, tell me the vowel sound in the word dog. And I would tell them, remember, the vowel sound's the one that makes your mouth open. And so they would go, dog. And I'd say, okay, what's the vowel sound? And then they go, it's ah, right?
Yes.
Because my mouth is open.
Which is so eye-opening, I think.
Yeah.
Because you see those kids go, oh my gosh.
Yes.
It's the one, and they that's my favorite part about teaching is seeing those light bulbs. Now, for those of you who might not even be aware about vowels, they're A, E, I, O, U.
And you might have learned sometimes why.
Yes, because it makes multiple sounds.
Because why borrows the vowel sounds.
Yes.
So. Okay, I love this quote though. I have to share this quote because I read this and I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a great quote. Okay, this is from the Letters Manual.
Okay, yes.
119.
Okay.
It says, vowels carry the tune during singing. It is possible to sing the words to any song by leaving off the consonants, and singing only the vowels. On the other hand, it would be impossible to sing with only consonants.
Okay.
So, do you want to try it?
Yeah, let's try it.
Pick a song.
Oh man, let's pick like an easy one.
Like Mary Had a Little Lamb?
Yeah.
Okay, let's sing it with just the vowels.
Airy, I, O, M, I, O, am, I, O, a, E, I, O, O.
Well, it might not have been perfect.
That wasn't perfect, but you know what?
It was fun.
Go us.
We were able to sing. You might not understand what we were singing, but we were able to carry the tune.
We apologize for you guys listening in the car with your windows down or at a stoplight where other people can hear what you're listening to.
We were able to
We hope you joined in.
Yes.
This is why we're not music teachers. Just want to throw that out there.
Okay.
We are not music teachers.
So should we try it? See if we can do it with just the consonants?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay, here we go. Can't. It's too hard. Maybe if I had the words in front of me, I could maybe try.
Well, I was thinking, okay, Mary, it's like,
then definitely cannot sing with just the consonants.
That's so true.
Oh my gosh.
The vowels are so important. That's a great exercise to show how important vowels are.
Oh, I think I'm going to do that next year in my class when we're teaching vowels.
Yeah.
I'll be like, here we go, you guys. Let's try it.
I haven't tried that. I just read that recently, so I haven't had a chance. But this is my first try.
Yeah.
That was completely candid. Okay.
Okay, so next.
All right, yeah.
So how important vowels are, right?
Yes.
They obviously carry the tune in singing. They're open, right? They're what open your mouth.
And they're voiced, meaning you're using your voice box to sing them. Some sounds that we make are not voiced.
Right.
And we'll get into that when we have an episode about consonants.
Yes.
Because there's lots of consonants. Some consonants are voiced and some are not. But
Yes.
all vowels are
voiced.
voiced. All vowels are voiced.
Yes.
Okay. So, like, I have my students fill their throat.
Yep, I do too, and I say it's their motor.
Or another way to see if it's voiced or not is who's done this, where you put your hands over your ears and like, okay, so a voice sound versus a non-voice sound, T and D, right?
Yeah. D. And
you can hear it. You can hear the difference.
Yeah.
So
try it.
Yeah.
You know,
Try
not obviously not if you're driving. You know, only if you're stopped. Be safe, please. But
say
cover your ears,
which is not a voice sound, and now say D, which is a voice sound. D. You can feel the difference in cover your ears. So all vowels, you can feel that vibration.
Awesome.
It's a voice.
Yeah, I've always done the throat and said, "Here's your motor."
Yeah, that works too.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you can feel the vibrations in your throat.
Yeah, that works too.
But I like the ears. That's a lot more impactful, I think. Anyways.
I don't know what the kids, I think it maybe depends on the kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I feel it more on my voice.
See, and maybe because this is new to me, where I'm like, ooh, that's impactful to me because I've never done that.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay. So vowels in English.
Yes.
How many are there?
5.
There's 5 vowel letters, but how many vowel sounds are there?
Oh, so many. Let me see. A, E, I, O, U. And then the schwa, which is what sound?
Well, the schwa, I think of it typically as being a short U sound.
But not spelled with U.
But not spelled with U. Well, actually, the schwa sound can be spelled with any sound. So what is schwa? I mean, should we talk about that?
Let's talk about schwa.
Schwa, I had this awesome book.
And see, I have a huge passion about vowels.
Lazy schwa.
And I love it. But I didn't learn about schwa until 2 years ago. And I was like, and it took me quite a few reps to understand what the schwa was because I'd never heard that.
The schwa is the most common sound in the English language, which is just like and it's actually any time you have an unaccented syllable.
Okay.
Almost when we just speak and we're not like being very careful with our diction.
Yes.
Then when we are saying anything that's non-accented, we end up using schwa sound for the vowel sound. So any vowel sound can say schwa, depending on where it is in a word.
Okay.
So like kitten. What's accented in kitten? Kitten. We don't say. We could say kitten if we're using good diction.
Yes.
We might say kitten. But we don't usually say kitten.
Nope, we say
kitten. Kitten, right?
Yeah.
And then the reason why the word and the word da say none's not A and D most of the time.
Right.
Although they can say A and D. Like you wouldn't say the one and only, you wouldn't say the one and only, although I guess people have gotten to where they do, but most of the time if you're accenting that the queen or whatever, you're going to say it with an E because it's not accented. But most of the time, the is not accented in our sentences.
True. it's that schwa.
It's a non-accented word when you're looking at the whole word. So that's why we say the, and that's why we say because it's schwa.
Yes, and you were just showing the book. I'm so sorry, I interrupted.
This is such a cute little book called The Not So Lazy Schwa, written by Yvette Mans, if I'm saying her name right. And I heard her on a podcast and I bought her book because I thought,
that's so cute.
That sounds cute, and I wanted to buy it, and it's really cute. And it's about the schwa trying to kind of find its place and being lazy, because we do think of the schwa sound as being the lazy sound.
Yes.
Right? But then the reason he's not so lazy is because he finds his role, and he's like,
I'm important, and I'm
he's
everywhere.
Actually the most common sound in the English language.
Yep.
So
if you're interested in learning about the schwa and teaching your kids about the schwa, then I would get that book.
Right. And so if you hear that word, that sound in an accented syllable, then it's typically spelled with a short U.
Awesome. I love it.
Like run.
Bug.
Well, usually a lot of, mutton.
This is not a common one that you hear.
I was trying to think of a two-syllable word.
I would have gone with button. But mutton's good too. That's a good $10 word to teach your younger children of what that is.
Okay. Anyway, so there's schwa. So we were talking about how many sounds there are in English, how many different vowel sounds. And this is something that could be super confusing.
Right.
About vowel sounds, is because they can be spelled so many different ways.
But the sounds, so how many vowel sounds are there?
That varies too, by accent. So they say there's 12 to 15. Depending on so let me give you an example of accent. So short O. Give me a short O sound.
Ah.
Is there another way to spell that?
Besides just short.
Besides O.
O-U-G-H says ah.
Sometimes it does. You're right. What about A-U?
Yeah, A-U says ah.
A-W. That's what I think.
A-W says ah.
I think A-U says ah.
Like ah.
Like saucer.
Saucer. Paul. August.
Yep. See, to me, that's the exact same sound.
Yeah.
But when I was doing my training with some people in Texas, they're like, that's a different sound.
But they're from Texas. They haven't.
I know. And I couldn't hear it. I was like, I don't hear a difference. There's no difference to me. It's the same sound. And they were like, no, it's different. The ah is more like it kind of rounds and opens at the end. Ah. It's like a saucer.
Saucer.
Right.
Well, okay.
And so,
okay.
It's a different sound to them. Completely different sound.
Which is so crazy.
I know.
So we're not that far away.
Right. And then we've talked about like nasalizing. Okay. Yes. So nasalized sounds are sounds that depends on what sounds are after it. So if you have an L, an M, or an N after a vowel sound, then it kind of changes the sound.
Right.
Often, and especially in certain accents. Like
especially, yes.
So say the word cat.
Cat.
Now say Sam.
Sam.
What did you say? It's the same sound for the vowel?
Sam, cat.
Cat, Sam. To me, it sounds the same.
Right.
But certain accents might say Sam.
Yes, I am.
Sam.
Cat.
And cat. I don't know.
Kind of depends.
Sounds the same to me, but this is what's tricky.
Yeah. So I guess here in the United States, because we have such a vast dialect of accents here, that there's so many different ways.
Say, in the United States, we say it this way. I was like,
no, we don't. It really depends on your accents. Yeah. And that's why sometimes if you go down into like the deep South, right? Like my family, my mother's family, South Carolina, Alabama, when we went to go visit my papa, my kids had a hard time understanding him at first because he accents vowels differently.
Yeah.
So anyways, sorry, we went off on a little bit of a tangent there.
And okay, so here's a couple sounds that sound a lot alike.
Yes.
I and eh. Do you ever have trouble getting your kids to hear the difference?
All the time. Yeah. All the time. And I talk about the placement and how their mouth is when they're saying those sounds.
So that's a good time to go into the vowel valley.
Yes.
To talk about the vowel valley.
Yeah.
So this was a new discovery for me the last few years too. Is that if you're thinking about what your mouth does for sounds, when you're trying to help kids learn their sounds, helping them know what their mouth is doing is really helpful. And with the vowels, because they're all open, that's a little bit tricky. But
some aren't as open.
The least open one is a long E.
Yes.
E. We call that a smiling vowel, and because you're smiling. But it's a tight smile, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then as you go down the vowels, you go E, I, and I don't know exactly the order they go in, but your mouth opens until you finally get to ah.
Ah, where it's completely open.
And then it starts to round
and go back up
in ah. You, until it's round.
Mm-hmm.
And so the vowel valley shows all these vowels going from the tightest smiling vowel down to the open and then back up to the round vowel. So I actually had a paraprofessional a few years ago from India. Excellent paraprofessional.
Yes.
Really diligent, really good. But of course, she had an accent.
Yes.
But she was teaching some kids, helping some kids with reading. And she came to me and she's like, what's the difference between I and eh? She's like, what's this sound? She pointed at the letters. Yeah. And I was like, I. She just like, she couldn't make the difference. And it wasn't until I showed her the vowel valley
that she could distinguish it.
And then she finally was able to distinguish. Like, she came to me like every day, tell me the sound again. And I'm like, let me show you this vowel valley thing. And I showed her that. And then after that, she didn't have to come to me anymore. She got it. So
cool. But so the reason why I'm very passionate about vowels and why I start off when I'm teaching students to read, I mean, obviously, like we go through the whole alphabet, right? And we teach them all the sounds, but I really like to focus on the vowels. And I really like to make sure that they know how to say those vowel sounds correctly, because if they don't, reading is very hard and very tricky.
Right.
And so I really like to focus on those and make sure that they understand, one, that they can be spelled in multiple different ways, these sounds. And that there's rules and different patterns to follow when you're reading with these vowels. But I always try and teach my kids, look for the vowels first, because that will tell you how to read the word, right? You're either going to see multiple and know that you're going to need to syllabicate it, or you're going to look at it, you're going to see that it's with a vowel team and know how to read that, or if it's with an irregular vowel team paired with a consonant. So I always try and teach them to look for those vowels.
I think this is kind of the last thing that we need to talk about in this episode. We're starting to run out of time, but is this issue that you and I talked about recently.
We did.
About the best way to teach kids these patterns. So a common thing, and I've seen this in shows, and I learned this growing up, is that when two vowels go walking, the first one does the talking, and that is true a lot of the times, but it's not true all the time.
Yes.
And so in my latest thing, I've learned, rather than, I don't do that at all, the latest program that I use for tutoring, instead I teach the kids the syllable types and what the rules are for that. So let's talk about that.
We had a discussion about it, and when Belle actually brought this to my attention at first, because I've always been, okay, there's the one vowel rule and there's the two vowel rule. One vowel rule, when there's one, the vowel is short. Cat, bed, mitt, whatever, right? And then when there's two vowels, the first one will say its name, A, E, I, O, U, and the second one doesn't say anything.
Right, which works great when you're doing one syllable words.
Right.
For the most part.
There's a few discrepancies, but there always are.
E-A, and they can say E or E or A,
right? And so Belle came to me and she was like, so how do you feel about this? I saw this kind of discussion on a forum, and when she was telling me, she wasn't telling me I was wrong, but she was like, I disagree. I don't think that's exactly the right way to teach it because of this and this and this. And mind you, Belle's had a lot more training than I have too, but I was almost offended, not angry, but I was almost like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this wrong. No, not like mad at you or anything, but like, have I been doing this wrong? Have I been doing an injustice to these kids? Like I'm almost like taken aback that I would be doing this wrong. And so I've really actually done a lot of contemplation on it, and I'm actually going to change the way I teach it next year as I'm rewriting some of the materials that I use. Yes, I'm going to talk about that rule, but I'm going to introduce it more as vowel teams.
Yes, good.
And so instead of just teaching here, this is E and it can say or E, teaching them vowel teams where it's, EA, obviously there's changes, or different things, and then also where there's the vowel, consonant, vowel, you know, and the sleepy E at the end or things like that. Right. But I'm going to teach them more of, hey, these are vowel teams instead of that.
Well, what I teach is I teach the 6 syllable types.
Right.
So, and when you teach the 6 syllable types, that helps the kids as they transition in from 1 syllable words to 2 syllable words. And then they learn to divide, okay, because they're looking for which vowels are making sounds and where do we divide it and what type of vowel, what type of syllable is this? So the 6 syllable types, the first one is open vowels, and that would be a vowel that has no letter after it in a syllable. So in 1 syllable words, it would be go, no, me, right? And those are almost always long. If it's accented, it's going to be a long vowel sound. Like if it's not accented, then A and I tend to change. A tends to be a schwa in an unaccented.
Okay.
Open, like
banshee.
No. I can't think of an example right now. I wanted to say table, but table is a perfect example of an accented one where A says A. Tay. That's your first syllable.
And so the sleepy E goes to sleep at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so that's the first one. Open syllables. The second one is closed syllables, which is your typical vowel, consonant, vowel. That's when you have a vowel with consonant sound after it in the same syllable, and that's going to be short. Okay. So bed, red, 10. Those are all 1 syllable ones, but if you put together like mitten, MIT, you divide it between the 2 T's. So it's mit. That T sound is making the I say the short sound, right? And then, so that's the 2nd syllable type. The 3rd syllable type is vowel, consonant, E.
Yes.
Right. So that's where you have the E makes the vowel sound, make it long. But it's very important to teach because there's always exceptions in these cases.
Always.
When you have and love.
Yep.
But the reason, there's a rule behind those too, because the rule is that English words don't end in V.
Yeah.
So you add the silent
have to
E.
add that silent E.
So, but there's always a rule. And then the 4th syllable type is vowel teams. So that's what you're talking about. You know, where you have 2 vowels that are together and really they need to learn they need to learn EA, and then it can say E or or A. And they need to learn EI can say E or A. IE can say E or I, and they learn those through other methods. So, and then when they recognize the vowel team, they can go in their mind and say, okay, which one sounds right?
Yeah.
So that's the 4th one. The 5th syllable type is actually R controlled vowels.
Yes. But I teach those as irregular vowels, like R
because the R changes the sound. It controls. I call them bossy R.
Bossy.
The R is bossing the vowel sound on what it's supposed to say. And then the 6th one is final stable syllables. So that would be your consonant LE.
Okay.
So bull, zol, kol, dol. Those. So I teach those so that, and when my students look at big words, they are looking for what they divide up the syllables and they look for what type of syllable type, and that helps them know how to pronounce the vowel.
Awesome.
So there's different ways.
Yeah.
It's a little bit complex.
It is.
Syllable types and little kids can learn the first couple at least.
Yep.
Really easily, and as time goes on, they just add to it.
Yep. And build. I think it's important. Obviously, start with that foundation and start easy, but you don't want to give it to them like, this is how it is.
Right.
You want to say, hey, just so you know, or so you're aware, we're going to start here, but it's going to go further.
Yes.
It's all, just like math, right? Like, you're going to start with the basics, but you want to prep the kids that, hey, we're learning this here so we can build on it and go here.
Yes. Yes, there's always building and reading. Okay, so that's the nuts and bolts of vowels, and they can be really tricky to teach, but they can be a lot of fun.
Yes.
So,
if you have any fun ways to teach vowels, activities, games, or wording that you use, or you have found something that has worked, please email us or send us some information because we'd love to hear that. If you have questions or comments, please let us know. Once again, our email is candiceandbelle@gmail.com. And we are so excited that you've been on with us through this journey. On our next episode, episode 10, we're going to talk about reading with kids.
Yes, we are. We'll see you then.
Have a great day.